agent-based models in general. It's not that there's anything wrong with them, it's that you have to decide your modeling paradigm before you start to get into the problem. And if you start to realize you need other paradigms, so say system dynamics versus agent-based modeling, if you started down one track, you're kind of stuck on that track. And what we're finding is that these systems have aspects of both, and if you want to be able to define system-level properties like conservation equations and agent-level properties like individual objectives and sort of local optimizations relative to their own observations or own desires or private signals, then we need an environment where I can code both my system-level properties and my agent-level properties, and we can see what happens when they come in kind of tension. And ideally, we're building systems where the systems rules, incentives, conservation equations, whatever, kind of steer the collective mass of the agents. So if you think in a sort of evolutionary biology analogy, imagine that you had an environment where you had a bunch of agents that ate sugar, and then you had an adaptive environment that could literally move the agents around by popping sugar up where it wanted the agents to go, which is essentially what you're doing when you create token models.
It's like the mechanism design.
So mechanism design is inherently lower level, and mechanism design is I view mechanism design as sort of looking into the problem and not at the bigger ecosystem.
Because it doesn't answer who guards the gardens.
Yes, in fact, it tends to be describing the dynamics of a mechanism and the incentives around a mechanism. But real environments have many mechanisms.
It's not an adaptive approach, right?
That mechanism itself can be adaptive.
Yeah.
The issue is that the agents, for example, aren't being modeled by having the choice between that mechanism and another mechanism. So you might have two separate mechanisms in the same world, and agents might be like, well, do I want to eat some sugar, or do I want to have some of this other thing?
They're co-competitive, or they're
And it gets worse, because when you have multiple mechanisms, if they have some shared state variables, then you have real challenges where you might use one mechanism and push the system in a certain direction, and then switch over to the other mechanism.
It would flip to the other.
So these things start to get really complex in the interaction effects between the mechanisms, between the behaviors, and definitely not suggesting that people start with models of complex interactions between multiple mechanisms, but if you take a modeling paradigm that kind of is solely focused on the design of a mechanism,